Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another full review video. In this full review video, we are taking a look at the Silencerco Omega suppressor. Before we get this video started, I wanted to let you know that there are multiple ways that you can support the channel down in the description below. Go ahead and head down there, click on the links, and any of that support seriously helps me out. And if you're looking to defeat the YouTube algorithms, make sure you hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. All those interactions really do defeat those algorithms that are constantly pushing down not only my channel, but many other channels like it here on the platform. I have had quite a few rounds at this point through the Silencerco Omega, and we are probably sitting a little bit over the 2,000 round mark, give or take, on this Omega at this point, so I think it's a perfect time to do a full review. Like any other suppressor review, I believe personally that first and foremost, you should hear how this suppressor sounds. So I'm going to take a small break here. Be aware on the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it's going to have information on the caliber, barrel length, and platform it's being shot through. Cycle's way better. So as you are going to see in that small clip, it is somewhat of a wide range of sounds to the human ear. I've learned a lot about rifle suppression as a whole and about the Silencerco Omega in my time with it. I've actually shot this suppressor with shorter barreled platforms, with full auto platforms, and also with longer barreled DMR style platforms. And you're going to get a wide range of performance depending on what you are shooting. In my experience, generally speaking, as far as impressive calibers to suppress, rifle calibers are not going to be impressively quiet a lot of the time. Now, if you have something like a 300 Blackout with subsonic ammunition, or even a 7.62x39 platform like the KS-47 that I was shooting in a few different videos more recently, and you are running subsonic 7.62x39, it is going to be impressively quiet. But generally speaking, with 5.56 in a standard AR-15 platform with shorter barrel lengths or even barrel lengths that are at that like 16-inch mark, it's going to still be relatively loud. Now, relatively loud is compared to things like pistol suppressors and rimfire suppressors. Of course, if you are looking for the most quiet, most impressive to your friends at the range and to just get it as close to movie quiet as you can, pistol suppressors and rimfire suppressors are really going to be where it's at. But I have found that 5.56 is a little bit of an oddball when it comes to suppression. A lot of factors come into play. So with the Silencerco Omega, it is going to be 30 cal, so that's going to allow you to shoot everything up to a 300 Win Mag down to 5.56, and of course many other calibers that are around the same diameter as a 5.56 or 223. Because it is not user serviceable, you cannot take these baffles out, you are not going to be able to shoot things like rimfire calibers through them. A lot of people get confused by that, they don't understand it because obviously a 22 long rifle can pass through it, and that is very true. However, 22 long rifle is incredibly dirty, and because you can't take this apart to clean it, Silencerco does not rate it for 22 long rifle, and it's definitely not advised. Of course, if you put a direct thread mount and had it 1/2x28, threaded it on the end of a 22, and you shot 2 to 3 rounds or whatever through it, is it going to destroy the suppressor? Probably not. But again, it's not recommended. With 5.56, I have had just a wide range of sound reduction with the Omega. I have a lot of 10.5s that I've ran this Omega on, and I need to at least have an earplug in my right ear. I am a right-handed shooter, and my right ear is by the ejection port. I get a lot of what's called port pop, which is going to be additional gases coming through the ejection port right by my right ear. So a lot of the time I'll shove an earplug in there, and then I actually won't put anything in my left ear, and that'll be just fine. If you have over-the-ear protection, I will remove my over-the-ear protection on my left ear, but actually keep it secure on my right ear. And again, I can shoot comfortably, actually a couple hundred rounds like that without issue. And of course, with any other shooters around you or anybody else just standing around you at the range, it is incredibly pleasant because you're not going to have all of those people wear hearing protection. Now, I have noticed that on some platforms, oddly enough, it is stupid quiet, and I couldn't tell you guys why that is. There's a lot of other factors at play. For instance, I just recently brought my Troy carbine to the range. Now that is a 16-inch 1-in-7 barrel, and that also has a mid-length gas system. I threw a Silencerco ASR 3-chambered brake on that. It sounded, no lie, almost like a 300 Blackout subsonic. I don't know what the hell was going on that day, but I had other people at the range with me, and they're like, hey man, is that actually a 300? We didn't know if you were shooting a 300 Blackout or a 5.56. I mean, it was that quiet. Of course, no ears were needed, and I was also shooting Tula 223, so it could be a combination of the mid-length gas system, possibly the Fail Zero bolt carrier group that I had in there, in combination with the slower, kind of underpowered Tula 223 ammo that just caused a perfect to suppress setup. So now that I know that, I'm probably going to be running that Troy carbine quite a bit more suppressed just because it was awesome. I've also ran the Omega on a lot of semi-automatic 308 platforms. Generally, in my experience, the semi-auto 308s tend to have quite a bit more snap to it at the ear. Now, this is really subject to whoever is shooting it. I have a lot of buddies of mine that actually really don't have great hearing after a lot of time in the military or a lot of time in construction or something like that, where their hearing is just damaged over the years. And to them, it sounds a lot better, but to me, it sounds pretty loud. It really depends on who's shooting it. But I've seen a lot of things with the 308 semi-autos that just make it really still spike to the point that I want to have hearing protection on. Now, with that being said, on the opposite end of that, with a bolt-action 308, the Omega is incredibly impressive. This thing is stupid quiet, and I didn't feel the need to have hearing protection on at all in a bolt-action 308. The other thing that I've noticed about running semi-automatic 308s with any suppressor is they aren't too great to run suppressed. Unless you have an adjustable gas system, you end up pretty much beating the rifle to death. This really does happen very quickly with a direct gas 308. I was running it on my PA-10 Gen 2, and without an adjustable gas block on that thing, it is just seriously putting some pretty fast and hardcore wear on the rear of the locking tabs on the bolt, and it is just one of those things where I know it's going to really have issues in a short amount of time if you run that suppressed a good bit. Of course, other things like a G3 pattern rifle, like a PTR 91, you really have to switch out some rollers and locking pieces in order to safely run that suppressed as well. So really the ideal 308 platform, in my opinion, is a semi-automatic piston-driven adjustable gas 308 of whatever type. I think you're going to have a much easier time suppressing that, and it's going to have a much better lifespan suppressed as well. The Omega does a pretty good job as far as gas blowback, but you're still going to have just more of a standard or relatively standard baffle design on the internals, and it's not really designed to remove all of that gas being blown back into the gun. And there are some suppressors out there, like OSS suppressors, that is actually designed to be more of a flow-through baffle stack to allow less gas pressure going back to the rear of the firearm. This is good on certain platforms like AKs because it's really going to do a good job of not increasing the amount that the rifle is just beating the crap out of itself. I've consistently been brought back to the Omega just for overall sound quality and design. I think Silencerco really knocked it out of the park with the Omega. I mean, it's tough to beat. There's a lot of people out there that crap all over the Omega, mainly because of the ASR lockup design. I have actually an older ASR lockup on here. Now the newer ones have a slightly different design with, instead of the knurling, it has little notches cut into it, but that's about it. And guys, I've never, ever once had an issue with this ASR mount. Any issues that I have seen, and I have seen a couple where people have potato launched their Omega or hybrid or anything else that uses the Silencerco ASR system downrange, has been because they did not lock it fully. They thought it was locked, it stopped at about there, and in the first or second round, it popped right off and launched off the end of the gun. It is incredibly important with the ASR system to crank it all the way over until you make contact with the other side of that locking tab there. If you do not do that, you're going to run into some problems. Now, there is no ratcheting design or anything like that, so the little tabs in here that have teeth on them generally are going to last a very long time because they're not wearing on the metal. But a lot of people still just bash that design because for whatever reason they think it's inferior to others. But the reality of it is that I've seen with any other quick detach suppressor design that if you don't tighten it properly, your suppressor is probably going to launch downrange. There are a lot of aftermarket mounting solutions nowadays. When I first bought the Omega, this was a few years ago now, there were nowhere near as many aftermarket accessories for the Omega. This is where it's a huge positive that Silencerco makes up such a large portion of the suppressor market. Silencerco, as of right now, I believe still makes up about 70% of all of the suppressor market that's in the United States. That is a huge portion of the suppressor world. And with that, you're going to get a lot of aftermarket support. That's what I tell a lot of people that are looking at the Omega compared to other rifle suppressors, and why I believe the Omega is still one of the best options for a first can when it comes to rifle suppressors. There is just so much aftermarket support. You don't like the ASR lockup? No problem. Q makes an aftermarket accessory. Dead Air makes an aftermarket accessory. You could even use Yankee Hill aftermarket accessories that all have the same thread pitch of this ASR adapter. So you can thread that right in. Obviously, those could also be reversed, so some of those other suppressors that also use the ASR thread pitch also have a wide variety of aftermarket brakes and adapters that you can use. There are a lot of other suppressors that are as tiny as the Omega, but they are much louder. You are sacrificing on a lot of that sound reduction. Now, there are definitely suppressors that are more durable than the Silencerco Omega. The Silencerco Omega is full auto rated for a wide variety of calibers, and I have tested that personally. I have ran this full auto on a 5.56 a few times, and I've never had issues with this thing, but I have also never gotten it cherry red hot, and I really would not recommend that with your own personal suppressor unless it's one that you're trying to destroy. But with standard full auto fire and full auto strings at the range, you're going to have no issues with your Omega. And as you guys are going to notice, I actually removed the factory 3-chambered brake thing that's on the end of it and have just gone with a Bravo 30 cal flat front cap. And that's really what I prefer. The brake, in my opinion, really doesn't do you too much. And if Silencerco, for whatever reason, is stumbling across this video, guys, I would highly recommend you just send out the flat cap instead of the brake and swap it around. If people want the 3-chambered brake, then they can buy that after the fact, but I would much rather start the can's life with this flat end cap. And I love being able to shave off that ½ inch and getting a much shorter overall profile. I would highly recommend still going with a 30 caliber end cap, even if you're shooting 5.56 most of the time. I really saw no difference in sound quality to the human ear at the range from 5.56 to 30 cal, and you have a much less likely chance that you're going to accidentally leave that 5.56 end cap on there and then throw this suppressor on a 300 blackout and have a really bad day. With the 30 cal, again, you don't really ever have to worry about it. The only time that that end cap change may be beneficial to you is in a night vision setting where you're trying to reduce as much flash as humanly possible. The 5.56 end cap may or may not remove even more of that flash. You really got to play around with some configurations in order to see what works best. For the majority of the Omega's life here in the Firearm Freedom Collection, I've used the ASR mount, but I've also used these direct thread mounts quite a bit, and they work actually really well. As far as point of impact shift, I haven't seen too big of an issue, but you're always going to get that with the suppressor, and it really depends a lot on the barrel. But if you are very concerned about point of impact shift and you have it on a bolt gun or something like that, direct thread is definitely going to be the route that you want to take. As far as the suppressor loosening in the direct thread mount, I have seen that quite a bit, especially on a semi-auto with the Omega. So it is important that you either get a very, very good suppressor wrap and reach up and tighten it every now and again, or bring a welding glove or something like that with you to the range and reach up and just give it a good crank every couple of mags or so. And it really depends a lot on the way that you're firing as well. Speaking suppressor covers, you guys will notice kind of some weird, nasty gunk all over the Omega here. And that was unfortunately from using the wrong suppressor cover from Silencerco. I had a Silencerco suppressor cover, but it was not the one with the additional like Nomex sock in there that was designed for even more heat protection. Their extreme high heat one, it was one with just the standard felt coating, and in about 20 rounds, that thing was smoking pretty good. I pulled it off the end of the suppressor, and all this nasty gunk of melted felt came off with it, and that did stay on the suppressor. Unfortunately, as many times as I have heated this thing up and wiped it off, it is not going anywhere. Of course, I could get this thing Cerakoted, but at the end of the day, I really don't care too much, and it's not the end of the world. I use this thing not for aesthetics, but to get the gun a little bit quieter for practical purposes. So to me, it's not a big deal, but keep that in mind if you're putting different suppressor covers on the end of a rifle suppressor. This thing gets hot very, very quickly, and when it gets hot, it's gonna melt a lot of things. The suppressor generally comes in at a little over 800 bucks, and I really do think it is worth it for what you're getting with this overall package. That is going to wrap this video up. I really love the Silencerco Omega. There will be a long-term review on the Omega in the future, and if you guys have any other questions about the Omega or anything else on the channel, please feel free to throw them down below in the comment section, and you guys know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out the description for the links to the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. I have daily content coming out on all three of those accounts that you guys are not going to want to miss. Thank you guys so much for watching, and stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.